Welcome to today's episode. Unlike our first two channel episodes, today's isn't an interview. Rather, we will have a look at how Turkey and not Iran could actually be the trigger to an all-out regional war in the Middle East. Today, we'll uncover key points and insights that you might not have heard elsewhere. But before we get started, if you're enjoying our content, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you know of others who'd find our videos interesting, like and share far and wide. Now, let's get into today's topic. And trust me, you won't want to miss this one. So, when discussing the IDF's invasion of Gaza and Lebanon, one recurring theme among analysts on mainstream media and social media platforms is the possibility of Iran escalating the situation into a full-blown regional war. Surprisingly, however, most analysis across these mediums have overlooked a key regional player, Turkey. What many panelists, particularly on mainstream media, fail to acknowledge is that Turkey has just as much potential as Iran to escalate the situation in the region into a full-scale conflagration. And let me explain. Ankara, you see, is getting increasingly uneasy as Israel brings the Kurdish issue into focus, just as President Erdogan plans a new offensive against Kurdish forces in northern Syria. This move seems aimed at preempting potential policies from the incoming US administration and is also part of Erdogan's broader attempt to initiate a new outreach to gain support among Kurdish communities in Turkey, a strategy that could support his bid for re-election. Now, Israel's backing of the Kurds aligns with new American leadership in foreign policy. Michael Waltz as National Security Advisor and Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, both are known for previously supporting Kurdish alliances in Syria. And fierce truth warrior and free speech advocate Tulsi Gabbard is known for her staunch anti-Erdogan stance. Now, what's important to note is that recent comments by Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar have heightened Ankara's concerns. Sa'ar not only expressed a desire to rebuild Israel's relations with Arab countries, but also he emphasized Israel's interest in strengthening ties with minorities in the region, especially the Kurds and the Druze, who we will get to right after. The Kurds are one of the largest stateless nations and a natural ally, he noted, pointing out their partially autonomous status in Syria, their recognition in Iraq's constitution, and highlighting their historical oppression from Turkey and Iran. Sa'ar emphasized the importance of building diplomatic and security relationships with the Kurdish people. Now, Erdogan, seizing on the fluid political landscape as the US transitions to the new leadership, Erdogan announced plans for another military intervention in northern Syria and Iraq, citing anti-terrorism as the official reason. His goal is to counter Kurdish influence, especially in northeast Syria, where Kurdish groups maintain a semi-autonomous territory. For Turkey, the idea of a Kurdish-controlled autonomous region near its border is a serious threat, reviving fears of a potential partitioning that could enable the Kurds to establish an independent state, potentially uniting Kurdish populations across Syria, Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. Mental note to everyone, 15 to 20% of Turkey's population is ethnically Kurdish in origin. Now, I'd like to provide some context. Turkey already controls approximately 8 to 10% of Syrian territory as a result of its three invasions carried out in 2016, 2018, and 2019, aimed at addressing its security concerns. Under the guise of combating ISIS, Turkish actions were in fact aimed at curbing the growing power of the Kurds. The Kurds, boasted by wealth from oil-rich regions like Erbil and US military support at the time, had strengthened their aspirations for statehood. And Turkey perceived this as a direct threat to its national security. It seems Turkey has a knack for framing military aggression with euphemistic names that belie the harsh realities on the ground, poetically naming its 2018 and 2019 military incursions Operation Olive Branch and Operation Peace Spring, while in actuality, they were invasions that targeted and displaced the indigenous Kurdish communities. This echoes the irony of Turkey's 1974 invasion of Cyprus, Operation Attila, which the Turks also dubbed a peace operation. While Turkey still, 50 years on, holds under occupation 37% of Cyprus's territory, forcibly displacing 200,000 Greek Cypriots, a third of their population at the time, to the south of the island, killing 5,000 Greek Cypriots in those operations, an astonishing 1% of the Greek Cypriot population at the time. To put this into perspective, imagine at that point in time, 2.14 million Americans killed, 70.5 million Americans displaced, and a third of the US, equivalent to the territories of Alaska, Texas, California, Florida, Arizona, and Montana, occupied by an existential enemy, a striking framework for understanding the scale of loss suffered and still endured by the Greek Cypriots. But returning to the Kurds for now, the other irony one finds in this brief historical window that I've diverged to is that in 2019, the US, after primarily relying on the Kurds to defeat ISIS, where approximately 11,000 Kurdish fighters perished to achieve this goal, abruptly withdrew its troops, effectively abandoning its most loyal ally in the area to face Turkey's invasion and occupation. This betrayal left the Kurds who were instrumental in ISIS's defeat at the time. It left the Kurds vulnerable to displacement and suppression. Now, lest we forget, the President-elect Trump recently claimed he'll avoid relying on DC insiders to staff his administration this time around. Because after all, who wouldn't trust the man who, as president back then, abandoned the Kurds after they sacrificed so much in the fight against ISIS on America's behalf? Now, back to the matter at hand. A Turkish military move in northern Syria would provoke widespread backlash. The Assad regime, for one, does not want Turkey to occupy even more Syrian land. Furthermore, the US would likely move to secure its troops stationed with Kurdish forces of the YPG in the area. Israel is also unlikely to ignore a Turkish incursion, as such a move would weaken a Kurdish force that is not hostile to Israel and would allow Turkey to extend its influence over a considerable part of Syria, potentially opening the region to increased Iranian influence. In collaboration with nationalist ally Devlet Bahçeli, Erdogan is working to isolate the PKK-aligned figures while also seeking support from Kurdish voters and the pro-Kurdish party. This support could prove critical for constitutional amendments, or in the case of early elections, both of which could potentially allow Erdogan to seek an additional presidential term despite the current two-term limit. Now, Israel's ties with the Kurds trace back to the early days of its statehood. In the 1960s, Israel supported the Kurds in northern Iraq with arms and funding, initially to gather intelligence against Arab neighbors. In 2014, Israel even tried to sway US opinion in favor of Kurdish independence in northern Iraq via a referendum, though the effort was deemed too destabilizing for the region at the time. Now, still, Israel continued to import oil from the autonomous Kurdish region in Iraq, reportedly through Turkey's Ceyhan port. Now, historically, Jews and Kurds have faced common adversaries in the Middle East, including Saddam Hussein, Iran, and the Syrian nationalist movement. Turkey's opposition to Kurdish autonomy has long been a focal point in its policy, and Ankara, now one of Israel's staunch opponents, has adopted rhetoric on Gaza that often echoes Iranian sentiments. Israeli Foreign Minister Sar also touched on another key minority in the region, the Druze. About 10% of Druze reside in Israel as citizens, with the remainder in Lebanon and Syria. While barely 6% of the population in Lebanon, the Druze there play a significant role and exert considerable influence in Lebanese politics. As for the Jews in Syria, who historically reside in the south, Israel is looking to them, so their areas could potentially serve as a critical buffer zone and an area of strategic Israeli influence. Now, many analysts believe that events like the Arab Spring and the fight against ISIS have disrupted the colonial era boundaries of the Middle East. The escalating rivalry between Israel and Iran is leading to a reconfiguration of alliances and borders in the region. Against this backdrop, Israel is seeking local allies while Turkey remains wary, seeing threats at every turn. Well, I hope I've provided some new perspective about the events unfolding in our region through an angle that mainstream media and analysts on social media platforms have overlooked to address. If you have insights to share, please do comment below. We've got a lot more coming your way, so if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell so you never miss an update, and don't forget to like and share with your friends and groups who might be interested. I appreciate you all, and stay tuned for more.